Let's bring in Colorado Republican Congressman Ken Buck. He joins us right now. Hey, Congressman.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, what did you make of, we just featured two of the examples of these aggressive activists who surrounded Joe Manchin's house and, were yelling at him. And then you had somebody chasing Kristen Sinema, cornering her in a bathroom just outside a stall. What do you make of what's going on? It seems like they're trying so much on the progressive left to pressure those two to do something else. It's just a head scratcher.
Well, there's a line in politics, and obviously these protesters cross the line. You don't go into a bathroom and chase an elected official. It's inappropriate. I am all for people expressing their opinions in public settings. I think we get a lot of feedback in town hall meetings, but these protesters are so aggressive. And what they're aggressive about is really scary. This lurch to socialism that we're going through in this country is something that I think a lot of Americans are really concerned about. But when the left does something, whether it's Antifa with their riots in the summertime or other groups, it's often excused as part of our democratic process. When the right does something, it is the left comes down on us and they want to criminalize a kind of behavior that the left engages in on a regular basis.
Well, and the president, to your point, said yesterday, it's all part of the process, unless you've got a Secret Service guy to say, get out of here.
That was pretty funny. I don't know why the Secret Service is supposed to protect somebody from a threat of death. Why they're pushing away protesters is
I'm not sure she has it. I have some people writing me saying it doesn't look like she has it. If you wanted it, can you get it? And don't you think she should get it?
Security.
Yeah, inappropriate. And again, I think that overly aggressive protesters need to back off and respect the fact that individuals are making the best decision they can for the country.
But Ken, can you get private security if you just express that to, I don't know, in your case, the speaker, and say, I feel threatened? Will you get this private security?
No, absolutely not. You get security based on an analysis of whether there's a real threat. If someone made a death threat against a member of Congress or other elected official, there would be police protection provided, but there isn't protection provided just upon request.
Yeah, no one's in favor of anyone being threatened. The president's saying basically that constituents should be able to go up to them and approach them and talk to them. It's just part of the process. But what the irony here is what the National School Board Association is calling on the administration to do. They want them to take action against parents who stand up at these school board meetings. And
the FBI.
They want the FBI to come in, and they want these parents, they're asking to classify the actions of these concerned parents as the equivalent to a form of domestic terrorism and hate crimes. What are your thoughts on this?
I'll tell you, Attorney General Garland was a judge, and he should know better than to try to use the FBI for political speech. So many of the courtrooms that we go into, we see this Greek goddess of Themis who had a scale in her left hand and a sword in her right hand, and she's blindfolded. And she's blindfolded because justice is blind. Justice is impartial. Doesn't care whether you're white or black, man or woman, tall or short. Justice should not be used to attack a group of people expressing their opinions at school board meetings, whether they're in favor of critical race theory or whether they're opposed to critical race theory, whether they're in favor of masks or vaccines or opposed. That's political speech that needs to be protected.
Right. And what he was talking about was just when it goes over the line. And apparently they've cited the mask mandates, the CRT, as things that have agitated parents over the last number of months. And the National School Board Association, Ken, listed 20 incidents in a variety of states, talked about how an Illinois man was arrested for aggravated battery after he punched an official at a school board meeting. And then there was a letter sent to a school board member in Ohio that said, "We are coming after you. You are forcing them to wear a mask for no reason in this world other than control, and you will pay dearly." So you can understand why the law enforcement would look into a threat like that.
Sure, and local law enforcement handles those kinds of threats every day in this country, and they are equipped to do that, and it's appropriate to do that. But when you nationalize the effort to go after people based on political speech, when you determine that one size fits all, that the FBI should be looking into these isolated incidents. This isn't a national group that is, garnering support and mobilizing people. It's wrong. It's wrong because we are picking sides in political disputes, and we should stay, and the federal government should stay out of those disputes.
Yeah, here's what AG Garland's memo on threats against the schools and administrative board members sounds like. Here's an excerpt. Well-spirited debate about the policy matters is protected under the Constitution. That protection does not extend the threat of violence and efforts to intimidate individuals based on their views. Understood. You shouldn't be threatening, but you should show, if you want to show up and show passion in front of your school board, you can't fear that the FBI is going to put you in jail for 20 years. I want to move on and talk about another area of your expertise, and that is big tech. Big tech comes to Capitol Hill and in front of a Senate committee today. We're going to hear them try to defend themselves. This in lieu of the Sunday 60 Minutes story, in which it became clear a whistleblower says they know exactly what's going on with the addiction with these social media organizations and how they're fueling the divide in this country. Ken, you're one of the people on the right that's supposed to join some on the left in starting to rein in these social media companies. Where do you start?
Well, what this really is it's a symptom of monopolies. If we had 5 Facebooks and 6 Instagrams and a number of Googles, we wouldn't have the same issue we're facing right now. There are some groups that would appeal to parents and appeal to others in the marketplace to gain market share. And the idea that we can foster competition and deal with this issue is much better than having a government agency decide what is good speech or bad speech. Yep. But what's so disappointing about what Facebook did is they have this idea that profit is more important than people. And it's really shameful that they knew there were suicide rates increasing among teenage girls. They knew that drug cartels were using their platform and human traffickers, and they did very little, if anything, because they were so concerned about profit.
Well, Congressman, when you look at what happened yesterday with Facebook and WhatsApp and Instagram all being down for half the day, and now they're saying, yeah, it was a router problem. So many people, for a variety of reasons, rely on those platforms. It essentially has become a public utility. And just the fact that it's a private business, to your point, it would be great if there was more competition, but there's not. But there doesn't seem to have been the will on Capitol Hill to actually crack down on them, because a lot of members of Congress and other people rely on them.
Well, certainly they are powerful. They have spent a lot of money with conservative groups, liberal groups, members of Congress, and they have gained a lot of influence. But the reality is that the public is demanding change, and I think you'll see change. We conducted a 16-month investigation. We have offered 6 bills to deal with this. The Senate is also working on those bills. I think that obviously Congress doesn't work rapidly in any situation, but this is a thoughtful process that will have long-term implications, and I think we're going about it the right way.
All right, Congressman, thank you so much for coming on with us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.